Jaden, OpenAI is having a day, man, right? I mean, like it feels like they are coming roaring back out of like kind of flying out of the gate with a ton of stuff. First of all, I'm hearing a ton about how 5.6 is working for people. That's pretty cool. It's being compared to Fable 5 essentially. I haven't done benchmarks myself, so I can't say. But then a bunch of other things that I wanted to touch on, Jane, because I heard you talking about this stuff on some of your other podcasts too. First of all, is this called Work, I guess,
Yeah.
which seems like a kind of a co-work sort of competitor. And then there's the voice thing, and this has been making the rounds. I keep doing. In fact, Jaden, just before we got on today, you saw I was like, hey, are you still the old voice or the new voice? Because people are raving about the new voice, but they said it's rolling out today. I don't have it yet, but I also got off the crazy max plan on OpenAI, to be honest. Anyway, your call. What do you want to sort of like start with on this?
Oh man, I mean, there's so much. I think the thing that I'm really excited about is the new OpenAI Work, which is the competitor to Claude Co-work. And I also like how similar we're naming things now.
Yep.
Work, co-work. Like
I'm
we're
kind
not
of
going
down with
very,
that though. I'm kind of down with that.
Yeah, it's good. At least it's like a comparable product, and in your brain you understand what it is. But no, I love this because I think OpenAI or Anthropic has really run away for the last 2 months with Claude Co-work and everything that is capable of doing where it controls your computer screen. OpenAI was getting into, I mean, they've been doing this for so long. They've been doing it for longer than anyone with, if you remember, ChatGPT agents like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And I remember, in the early days testing it out, it wasn't quite good enough. It had a virtual private computer that it was running. It wasn't running on your actual computer. Then they came out with Atlas, which, by the way, that's a whole nother piece of news, which is that OpenAI's Atlas browser that they launched is shutting down. So they're killing it, and they're putting all the features from that into a Google Chrome extension, a ChatGPT Google Chrome extension, and into just a beefed up ChatGPT app. So, I mean, they're basically copying what Anthropic has done. They have a Claude app, so they're just having a ChatGPT app. They're like, look, you don't need a full browser, I guess. Although, yeah, interesting. But there's other people with browsers out there. We still have Perplexity with their browser out there. So there's other browsers out there. It
Copilot
looks like
too, right? Doesn't Microsoft doesn't Copilot still have a browser?
Edge has a bunch of AI features embedded into their browser. That actually is pretty impressive. They might have been one of the first. I haven't been a big Edge user in my life, but I did download Edge and start using it when they had loaded up a bunch of these really cool AI features. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting moment right now. OpenAI feels like they finally caught up to Anthropic, which I feel like they probably hate me saying that because they don't want to feel like they were behind, but they've caught up. 5.6 is just as good as Fable. Many people are saying online. They now have Work where you actually can control your computer. They're consolidated a bunch of software. So I think they're in a really strong position right now. And if I'm being honest, like you, I canceled my $200 a month OpenAI account. I have 2 Claude Max accounts that are $200. I'll probably cancel one of those. We'll go one OpenAI and one Anthropic for when the rate limits hit me. I'll go back and forth between the two, and they do have a bunch of different cool features. So yeah, I think OpenAI might have won me back with a lot of these features here.
I'm fascinated by it, and it's by the way, it's a good moment to sort of like shout out the fact that we do keep going back and forth. And if you haven't tried AIbox.ai, this is the best way to do this without spending a gazillion dollars. This is for less than $10 a month. Jaden's company here that has been going gangbusters, where you can just like compare answers back and forth, which is what I do all the time. But Jaden, to be honest, I hadn't been doing it much of late. I'd sort of like lived in Claude. Gemini, I don't know. I know they say Gemini doesn't have a frontier. They obviously do have a frontier model, but they haven't had anything in a little while. It's sort of falling behind, and it's kind of probably a different type of episode. But I still love Gemini. I use Gemini just sort of as the default. But I've put my team on looking into chat, which I think is really fascinating because you and I were talking for a while before we got on today just about Claude Code and Claude Co-work and how those are starting to come together. Starting to come together a little bit, just in terms of their functionality. Co-work is getting I think stronger and more solid, and skills is starting to really represent agents in a way, which is really interesting. And then Claude Code, I don't think it can take over your screen yet or anything like that, but it's just interesting. Claude Code is also getting much more user friendly. It feels like day by day without even announcements. So now I'm sort of tempted to do the same thing as you, which is to kind of go back over and open OpenAI again, open ChatGPT again with 5.6, all that kind of stuff. It'll sort of like feel like going back and visiting your elementary school. It feels like that's how long it's been. But just sort of seeing what's happening on that. But Jaden, when you think about that, when you think about how you use Claude Code, Claude Cowork, you're building like a ton of cool apps, you're doing a ton of cool stuff with AI Box, everything else. What's for you, the value proposition of going back and using ChatGPT is sort of just to check, or the other thing I keep hearing is, and then there's a back and forth race on this that you were posting about, but it feels like now they're starting to compete on price a little bit too, right?
Yeah. They're actually competing on a bunch of different levels, and I love this. I don't like it when Anthropic is like by and far the leader and they're kind of crushing it. I mean, I'll go all in, but like I don't like it because I want that kind of competition. And like you mentioned, I made a post on LinkedIn where essentially OpenAI made their big announcement. They're like, hey, look, we just dropped the new version 5.6, and we also have the new work tool that can take control of your computer. And then literally 10 minutes later, Anthropic drops a post and they're like, hey, everyone, we've reset all of the rate limits on Fable 5. We've extended the Fable 5 usage so you can just keep using that. And it's like all your credits are reset. Anyways, it was hilarious because, to be honest, right before that tweet went out, about 10 minutes before, I was at 92% of all my Claude usage. And as soon as that thing got to the end, I was just getting ready. I'm like, okay, I'm finally going to make the switch. I hit my rate limit. I'm going to go get Codex and we're going to like get all set up in there. And then it reset. And I was like, well, maybe in a couple days once I use these tokens. This is really smart. But so I do love that. I love the competition here. And I think that we're finally at a place where like the competition is going to get prices down, but it's going to get the products better. OpenAI feels like they really put a big effort on refocusing on what a lot of people are using, what's important, getting actual work done. And so I'm really excited because of that kind of refocusing it feels like we're seeing from OpenAI.
Do you feel like it's all of this stuff is like how we work, right? Like the entire conversation around AI is how we work. So there were the big conversations from Dario and from Sam and everybody else saying this is going to take all the white collar jobs, thinking that would probably boost their IPO price is my guess.
Yeah.
And then it almost, I think, did the opposite to a certain extent. Not that we know that price yet, but more that the backlash has been tremendous, right? As we sort of like know from back in the graduation speakers, everything else, when you talk to people tend to be pretty negative about AI. And now it feels like all of these things are trying to become better user interfaces, better, easier to use. I still feel like we're sort of on the frontier, Jaden, people like you and me and probably a lot of our listeners too. Like when you go out into the world, that's not how people are acting. But again, just getting to use Claude Code and not having to open the sort of like the DOS style terminal windows is huge. But I love what you said about the browser, like Atlas shutting down and things like that, because I think what Sam Altman had realized early on with this too is that everybody's still trying to find product market fit. Like, what do people actually want? I don't think they want a separate browser. I don't think they want Sora, a new Twitter. I don't think they want, they don't want that. But what they do want is all these things integrated into one thing and make it super user friendly, which then brings me to the new voice as well. And this is, again, we keep testing it. It still hasn't come online, everything like that. But like when I see the demos, and look, I'm always a little skeptical of demos for sure.
Sure.
But even knowing where it is now and knowing how good 11 Labs tends to be, if it really is like that, I see no reason, Jaden, and like where we are right now in July 2026, if this is where we are now, this is only, it's exponential in how much better voice is getting. And that's where I feel like maybe a breakthrough starts to come in terms of one way or the other. It's either going to turn everybody against AI forever, or it's going to make people feel like, oh, now this is something I can really interact with,
Yeah, 100%. And there's a bunch of different pros and cons between the two. One interesting thing, I was talking to my wife the other day, and she was like, because like I've switched everything to Claude, but we still have like a ChatGPT account, and sometimes I max out our Claude account and hits the rate limits. Anyways, she was telling me the other day, she was like, I was like trying to get this thing done for like the kids' homeschool, to help them make this curriculum that for this unit we're working on, and she was like, and like it was driving me crazy because I kept asking Claude to do it, and like it would do it. It just took so long. And she's like, then I would ask ChatGPT, and it was like instantaneous. She's like, I love ChatGPT. It's amazing, and they've added so many new features that Claude only used to have. Like they can make all these, do incredible deep research, all the stuff that I wish they could do forever. Felt like Claude nailed it. They didn't. It feels like OpenAI is all back on board. But anyways, she was super thrilled about how fast that they were doing it. So OpenAI has a really impressive algorithm on speed and efficiency and when you can and can't do that. And Claude, it feels like it's just going to always maximize it's going to give it the maximum amount of like power, but it's also the most expensive, and it's going to take the longest. Now, if I'm coding a new feature in a website and it's like a really complex piece of software and it has to get it perfectly right, I'm going to spend more money and say, take as much time as you want. Like, I mean, relative, right? Like who cares if it takes you 2 hours versus if it takes you 10 minutes? Because I just need this feature to be done and it's going to help me for, 2 years. So at the end of the day, like there are different pros and cons to the two different platforms. But I've actually also seen with the new version of what OpenAI has come up for coding, I've actually seen some people, I mean, this is just tweets on Twitter, so take this with a grain of salt, but they're like, I'm using Codex right now and ChatGPT 5.6 to go clean up mistakes that Fable 5 left in my code base. So like there are differences in these tools, and sometimes putting both of them, like I always will take like Claude, like something I've been doing for the last couple of months is like, I'll take Claude and say like, hey, look at this website or the SaaS I have and do like an in-depth SEO audit, security audit, and like speed optimization audit. Like these are 3 things I do frequently, and I redo them over and over again as I add new features and things. Well, turns out if you get those same audits done by something like Codex afterwards, you actually get like some different results and a couple different things that it missed that it was able to get. And so there is like a really good value in using multiple models to do the same task over and over again and to give you 2 different perspectives on it.
Yeah, I think that's why constant comparing of models is great. And sometimes it's as just as simple as, I just like how Claude just talks back. I think Gemini is still, I know the benchmarks aren't there, but I still find it just for day-to-day stuff, just one of the smartest things out there. But then for deep work, I gotta say, I'm kind of like not as into Gemini as I was before. But this is the point about keeping up. And the only other thing on price before we wrap on this is, I was looking at sort of like how much I was spending, and I don't spend a lot on API credits or anything like that. But like but I have like an open, I have a couple of OpenClaw agents, and I don't mind spending money because I know that I'm getting value out of it. And I think just sometimes when people say like, oh, $20 a month, Jaden, it's still like 90% or 89% or something like that on free ChatGPT like accounts. It's just they're not seeing it yet. I'm just sort of like wondering what the business model for that is going to be. Anyway, guys, it's so glad to be talking about OpenAI again. OpenAI, welcome back to the conversation. I know you guys are working unbelievably hard. We love our friends at OpenAI, don't get me wrong, but I know that even inside there, they were like, oh my gosh, like, come on, like, where's the oxygen in the room has all been sucked out here. So super excited to have them back in the conversation. They have a phenomenal product. And listen, y'all, we are getting closer and closer to our 200 review mark. Jaden and I have a giant countdown every day. We celebrate it. Where are we, Jaden, right now? We are at 185. Oh, guys,
close.
Come on. You can do this. We can do it together. We're so grateful for you listeners, everything else, and always look forward to these pods with you. But just remember to leave a rating review and tell your mom too as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, we will see you all on the next episode.